Welcome to the back room. I'm Laura. In this video, we're diving back into Chapter 1 of Walden for more lessons on simplification. As I finished reading the last half of the chapter, I located 9 more simplicity lessons that I thought would be interesting to talk about with you. After I briefly discuss all 9 lessons, I'll share my overall thoughts. Number 1 is recycling. Thoreau carefully salvaged the wood and building materials from another family's shanty to construct his own cabin near Walden Pond. After paying a fair price for the structure, he dismantled it piece by piece to reuse the boards and timbers. This deliberate act of recycling demonstrated his commitment to economy and self-reliance right from the start. By repurposing these materials, he minimized his initial expenses and established a practical foundation for his new life in the woods. Recycling fosters simplicity because it saves us money and reduces waste in valuing what already exists. Number 2 is shared work. When Thoreau constructed his small cabin, he wasn't entirely alone. He welcomed the help of neighbors to raise the roof frame and assemble the wallboards. This collective effort shows that independence does not mean total isolation from the community. Accepting a helping hand for heavy labor can coexist perfectly with a self-sufficient lifestyle. Shared work fosters simplicity because it lightens heavy physical and mental burdens through cooperation. Number 3 is basic designs. Thoreau dismissed the use of architectural decorations that didn't serve a practical utility. He argued that true beauty in a dwelling emerges naturally from the inhabitant's life and basic needs, rather from superficial ornaments. Stripping away these useless luxuries allows a structure to remain honest and functional. This critique values substance over style, and it rejects pointless embellishments. Basic designs foster simplicity because they eliminate unnecessary upkeep and expensive visual clutter in our environment. Number 4 is budgeting. Thoreau's detailed financial logs show his belief in the importance of tracking exactly where every single penny goes. By accounting for his precise expenses on food, clothing, and materials, he maintained complete control over his economic freedom. His strict budgeting illustrates healthy spending habits and financial awareness. Closely monitoring outflows prevents waste and ensures that our resources align with survival needs. Budgeting fosters simplicity because it grants us peace of mind when we have control over our income. Number 6 is life school. I liked how Thoreau asked us to reconsider the true value of a traditional college education in light of its immense financial cost. He suggested that higher education often fails to teach the vital art of life wisdom, which is potentially more valuable than an academic degree. Depending on your career aspirations, true wisdom can be gained through first-hand experience and conscious living rather than expensive classroom lectures. Life school instead of college can foster simplicity when it frees us from crushing student debt while providing practical wisdom. Number 6 is minimal technology. In Chapter 1, we learned that complex inventions have the potential to become distractions from the spiritual aspects of our human existence. Thoreau warned that tech advancements often control us instead of serving us. This can feel like being run over when we are unable to keep pace with changes and advancements. This point urges us to think about our levels of anxiety and depression and whether or not our new gadgets are triggering these problems or honestly making a positive impact in our lives. Minimal technology can foster simplicity throughout the day because it minimizes the hijacking of our attention. Number 7 is few possessions. Thoreau wrote that the less property a person owns, the less they ultimately have to lose in life, and that shedding unnecessary belongings allows us to see more of ourselves. Holding fewer material possessions freed Thoreau from constant anxiety of maintenance, theft, and financial ruin, and gave him relaxation and joy while living on Walden Pond. Few possessions fosters simplicity because it liberates us from the anxiety of FOMO and liberates us from maintenance, theft, and loss. Number 8 is nature. Thoreau wrote that he'd rather live like one of the New England natives with their simplicity and closeness to the earth. He described modern anxiety as strict schedules, loss of freedom, and pressure to fit in, which in effect turns people into cogs of a machine. Thoreau observed that stepping into nature stripped away the distractions and folly of modern life. Nature is the exact opposite of a machine because nothing in the woods is superfluous novelty. A tree doesn't grow to impress its neighbors, and a river doesn't flow out of social obligation. When Thoreau sat by a quiet lake, listening to birds or watching snakes shed their skin, his mind was eased into presence. Nature fosters simplicity because it moves at its own organic, unhurried pace that can bring us to the current moment. Number 9 is self-improvement. Thoreau distrusted traditional charity and philanthropic service. He claimed that this service was either wasted or that it stemmed from ego, when those doing the service are driven by their own unhappiness. Thoreau believed that instead of attempting to fix others, individuals should focus on self-improvement, contending that authentic contribution to society comes from lived simplicity and cultivating personal character rather than through transactional giving. In other words, true goodness is a constant, unconscious way of life rather than a superficial act. Self-improvement fosters simplicity because it stops us from wasting our energy on fixing others while we focus our power inward. So, those are the 9 lessons that I scooped up from the last half of chapter 1. Thoreau's arguments for simple living without the superfluous stuff made me think about other similar philosophies, such as Ordnung and Sannyasa. Let me explain. 2 decades ago, I used to buy milk and eggs from a Mennonite community in Tennessee. I learned quickly about their concept of Ordnung, spelled Ordnung. They drew sharp boundaries around not just technology, but around modern flair or anything artistic. Without these vain things, as they called them, daily life gains a profound sense of presence. Evenings are not spent sharing individual showy stuff, but rather sharing face-to-face conversations or singing or working on utilitarian crafts with family. This folksy simplicity fosters psychological peace, virtually eliminating the modern anxieties of FOMO and online social comparison. Furthermore, the Ordnung enhances daily enjoyment because everybody feels equal. When clothing is uniform and homes are free of flashy decorations, the pressure to compete disappears. No one is stressed about keeping up with the neighbors or buying trends. Instead, joy is found in ordinary, tangible pleasures, such as a shared communal meal, a well-tended garden, or a neighborhood barn raising. The philosophy of Ordnung always seemed virtuous and spiritual to me, but as an artist, as well as a writer and a lover of old books, I felt that I personally would become depressed living as an Amish or Mennonite. However, these austere people would probably argue that the Ordnung sets as a protective shield for the soul. By deciding collectively what stays out of the community, they do not feel restricted, they actually feel anchored. The other philosophy that Thoreau reminded me of was the Hindu practice of sannyasa. This is a renunciation of material possessions, societal titles, and family obligations. In other words, a sannyasa renunciate sheds the heavy psychological burdens that plague modern living. Like Thoreau, and like the Amish and Mennonite Ordnung, the sannyasa renunciate links superfluous novelty to a constant cycle of anxiety, desire, and the fear of loss. Therefore, any happiness gained from superfluous novelty is transitory, and sannyasa breaks this loop. Without the noise of consumerism or ego-driven goals, daily life becomes remarkably rich. Sannyasa allows intense pleasure in the simplest of living, such as the warmth of the morning sun, a quiet meditation, or even just a simple meal. This shifts the source of joy from temporary material objects to an unchanging internal sense of peace. Now, I am not here to sell people on any kind of philosophy. I just want to offer my interpretation and personal commentary. I like the intention behind the austere living that Thoreau and other philosophies teach, but from my point of view, they feel a little bit too extreme for most people at least, and certainly for me. Many good people think that it's worth working extra hours or putting in extra energy and money to buy nice things, even if they are superfluous things. It's just to enjoy the delight of having them. And if the neighbors notice and shower praise on those things, hey, I don't think it's a big deal. So, with that said, I prefer to look at Thoreau's simplicity lessons through the lens of a balance scale. On one side is overwork, the machine mentality and self-slavery that robs us of our time to contemplate life. It's the constant pursuit of pleasing our ego and pleasing society with meaningless novelty at the expense of our spiritual enrichment. And then, of course, on the other side is Thoreau, the Ordnung, and the sannyasa. But right in the middle of that balance scale is what I like to view as a sweet spot. It's a place where we can enjoy simple luxuries for our own amusement while still leaving room for spiritual contemplation and spiritual experiences. I don't think that Thoreau was a hardliner on this issue of austerity. He seemed reasonable, and his writing states that he understood that surviving in society required some cultural norms. After all, he only lived in this super simple way at Walden Pond for 2 years. His philosophy was, in large part, aspirational, and that's a great reminder for us, I think. It's completely okay to find a happy medium or our own comfortable spot on the balance scale, just as long as we find mental health and genuine meaning in life that works for us. Well, that's all for this video. Thank you for watching. I have enjoyed sharing Thoreau with you. And as always, I welcome all of your questions and comments. Goodbye.